What's going on, everybody? It's the mother effing nerd rap podcast. And let me chop the table real fast. Salute to everyone that has been supporting what I've been doing as far as the podcast is concerned. This is another YouTube episode, man. Salute to everybody. Here to get chopping this table about comic books are failing while, what I mean, we're seeing massive success with we're seeing massive success with manga in the United States. But we're gonna talk about that. Definitely wanna get in touch with my anchor audience at first. We really get to chop at this table. We're gonna discuss some in-depth reasons of the possibility as to why comic books could be failing. Again, this is one of the second lives I'm doing now, for the Nerd Rap podcast. So y'all just stay tuned in. I'm gonna start recording on Anchor. One moment. Okay. Oh, yo, it's the motherfucking Nerd Rap Podcast, and we here to talk about comic books are failing while manga dominates. Yeah, manga comic book sales in the States are bad, bad. Like, and it's a lot of different factors that's coming into that. A lot of different factors that have been going on in terms of both Marvel and DC have been flundering the bag. Um, that's just the catch-22 of Marvel's success is that their comics have been going to appeal to more global audiences a lot of the times. And here's the problem with a comic book company, both Marvel and DC, that were predominantly a particular people. Because when you then try to branch out and appeal to audiences you never tried to before, a lot of the times they're contrived. I wouldn't even say like all the times offensive, they're just contrived. It's like you weren't really creative with this. And I would much rather see homages to various cultures and ethnicities from those respective cultures and ethnicities. I'd rather see those people in particular represent their cultures in like a medium such as comic books or something, because that really matters. And it really matters when you portray other groups of people in a light that is respectable. But with comic books, um, they turn the argument into that they've made it too politically correct and that's why the books are failing. That's not really it at all. I mean, some of the greatest comic books of all time are political. V for Vendetta was political. You read the old League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, it's political. Hell, Batman, The Dark Knight Returns, it's political. Superman, Red Sun, one of the best Superman stories of all time, political. So comic books are political. They're very political. Their roots are in politics and just social commentary. I mean, the X-Men were an allegory for Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. We give Stan Lee that credit, but we don't give the other various creators in comic books that credit. I mean, some of the first cover of the Black Panther, he was fighting Ku Klux Klan members. We're not going to say it's not political. Come on, come on. Thank you, Billy Graham. You're a real one for that too. But that's how I feel when it comes to Marvels, their failings. Just trying to appeal to a global audience, but it's never natural. They call it SJW warriors, social justice warriors, and to that extent, man, I wouldn't just call y'all out indirectly, but there are definitely some things where they create characters solely for the purpose of appeasing, which I don't think is a problem. I think it's really just the quality of the character and that the character that they created to be a good character first versus just trying to be a check mark for a demographic. I don't think anyone really cares. Well, I think some people are bothered when you see like gay or trans gender people, but it shouldn't really bother you if the character's dope. If there's a dope character that happens to be transgender, that is still a dope character while still being a good. And that's what matters. Not about representing a certain group of people. You want a representation of a group of people that shows them as fully capable, like the other superheroes on the show. And I think that's the issue that people have, in particular with Marvel and DC, when it comes to representation. Because a lot of times it is forced. Would we be getting a black Batman right now if comic book sales were as they were before the original New 52? Because really, all these reinventions and rebirths are happening due to the fact that comic books are trying to up the sales. Because after the 90s explosion, there's never been, the comics have steadily been decreasing in sales. Steadily. There was a point where like 500,000 to $1 million in sales was the numbers were huge for comic books. It's never been that way again. You feel what I'm saying? It's never reached those heights that it was in the '90s when it was everywhere. So I feel they've done a lot to try to appease audiences versus just pushing forward with new stories. We should have been had a new Batman. But the issue that I have when we introduce Jay Fox, that's Luke Fox's brother, as the next Batman, so we could say we got a black Batman now. My retort to that would always be, what happens when DC starts seeing a profit return on Batman? Do we then get Bruce Wayne return as Batman? Because they tried to offset it with him being the Dark Detective and bringing down the Peace Unit, the Peace Unit 1, and he was able to the Peacekeeper 1, and he was able to take him down while blowing up the big tower that ran the monitoring system of the future state of the magistrate. So, in my personal opinion, I feel that's really just done to leave it open for Batman to still assume the mantle of Batman. What are you talking about?
No, because I just went to the store to buy something, and he just kept on shooting me. And I don't know why.
Who kept shooting you?
The shop owner.
Did you come in there with a gun out?
No.
Were you shooting before you went in there? Okay, maybe just wanted to shoot you. I can't tell you nothing. It's Grand Theft Auto. Go shoot him back.
That's what I said. I'm gonna kill him.
No,
And then I'm gonna kill the cop. Then I'm gonna kill the cop.
all right, don't be in there going crazy. That's the danger of letting children play with you. But let me share this, John. We're going live. We're going live, baby. We're going live, baby. We're going live about comic books, man. So I know everybody ain't no goddamn nerd, but tune in anyway. But yeah, comic book sales are failing drastically too, and it's just a matter of why is manga so dominant. Manga's dominant for a few reasons, actually. Manga, for one, what a lot of people have to realize too, is that because it tells a singular story, it tells like a singular narrative, it's easier of a sell. You feel what I'm saying? It's an easier sell to get new readers on to a narrative that is only singular in nature. Comic books in itself is meant to perpetuate itself to nigh infinitum. They're not meant to really end like that. So when you're creating a medium that you want people to invest in characters, that every few years a new writer, a new creative team comes on that wants to radically reinvent things or do things differently or introduce new elements, new characters, and some of it sticks, some of it doesn't. Then when they want to do a reboot, they take some of the more popular new inventions, they take some new reinventions, they take some stuff out. It's a lot of madness. It's a lot of madness. That's what I be saying. That's it. With manga, it keeps things a lot more focused. And when you have a story that's singular, that you can focus to one reader, it's easier for them to jump into. Like, I gotta think, it's hard to sell a nigga on like Batman. It's hard. Like, which Batman do you sell them on? You know how many times I gotta say, damn, man, this is a certain run of Batman. Like, you gotta preface that because not every run is the same. Not every writer did anything extraordinary. I mean, there's a lot of runs we don't know about, but comic books is something like, you gotta learn to follow the writer, the artist. You gotta know who you're working with. See the team they got behind a certain book project, kind of tell you its quality. There's a lot of things that factor into that. So I would say with manga, because it's one vision, like I would love to see American comics equivalent of One Piece. And the closest we got to that was Cerebus. But that man was talking to kids, so the hell with that bastard. But other than that, I would say that what makes manga more appealing to newer audiences is just the fact of people are able to gravitate more to that. Yo, what up, Killer?
You at work? You working?
I was doing a anchor on manga and shit, a podcast. Okay, I'm gonna check it out now.
Hey, I'm uploading 2 more videos, but I don't know why I ain't sharing it yet. But look at that! Dog, look at your boy. Your boy working now. Your boy working. You know what I'm saying? Your boy working, man.
All right, that's clean.
Your boy working.
Okay.
Check this out, though.
Okay. No, I'm gonna see it now. Let me finish this joint up. I'm gonna check it out in a second.
Finish that up.
Uh,
Oh,
that shit was hard. Nah, shit. Look, I'm sitting here. I'm sitting here. I did an interview and whatnot. But salute to the platform. Got some of my friends starting podcasts. Salute to the my man Prime Time. Salute to my cousin LIW3 Prime Time Mind of the Battle Rapper. Talk to Me Nice podcast. Salute to y'all, man. It's good to have friends in this game. Jump in. Y'all please go follow them, man. Them guys is cooking. Talk to Me Nice podcast, as well as Mind of the Battle Rapper. Check those out, man. Salute to them guys and what they doing. Anywho, when it comes to manga and comic books, the reason why manga is just an easier sell is one vision. Like Cerebus, that nigga was talking to girls, so it don't matter. But like something like One Piece, what are y'all doing?
I was making the police siren sound.
Stop all that yelling.
Okay.
You too, fathead. But I feel like with One Piece, man, it's one vision. So like you got to see that story develop for almost 20 years, my nigga. But if it was changing creative hands every year or so, would it be the same experience seeing the catharsis of certain plot points resolved almost 10 years later? Like nothing was forgotten about? Like that's a different level of consistency that you can't get when you're passing a character over to a new writing team every couple of years. You know, like we look at the run that Stan Lee and Jack Kirby had on Spider-Man, but they wrote the first 160 issues and Jack Kirby drew the first 160 issues before they handed it over. But after that, Stan Lee didn't have no dealings with Spider-Man. There was no invested interest in
What strip club?
something you're not going in.
Okay.
But and that's the kicker with how that works in general. They did the first initial issues, but once they move it on to a new creative team, then that new creative team has the liberty to kind of change things, retcon things. I mean, you want to still keep things in line and not lose the audience, but it's their chance to still strike out and do something new with the character. And that's what every artist is like. That's what every time you put a creative team on a particular character, a lot of times you will see elements introduced or taken away, emphasized or unemphasized, because it's their chance to kind of do their own spin on the character. Like I've always wanted to do my own run on Batman myself because I would preferably wanted to do a Batman that I would like to see. That I feel there are elements that other writers have introduced. There are elements that I didn't really care for. I would personally like to see a Batman that wasn't doing this world saving superhero shit. More the animated series Batman, who still showed a lot of compassion for humanity, and while he was still a jerk, a dickhead, and an isolationist, it wasn't borderline the pathological, that you see in the books nowadays, where he's too extreme and he's too prepared and he's not allowed to be human. And I feel with a lot of writers, you get very few writers that know how to strike that balance between complete competence and omniscience. And I feel they teeter a line with Batman a lot with that, where he's just always prepared and he's always this to the point that him being human is never emphasized. I said, stop that yelling, Malachi. I'm not going to ask you again. So I feel it's one of those right there. Just manga, I feel is what a lot of us want nowadays. Because if you want something good to stick with, it's like binge watching something. So, like, if I like My Hero Academia, and I've liked this since day one, then it may be good that I pick it up now because now it's almost 100 something chapters in. Like I got a lot of story to delve into, something to really dig into, and there's one complete narrative. And I would rather one longer, completed, fulfilling story than a protracted series of rebirths, characters dying, coming back from the grave, reincarnation, killing the character, and then trying to make a whole storyline to kill him again. I mean, DC invented the crisis crossover type stories. And what'll happen is after so many massive crossover events where the universe is being switched around, flipped over, creating new deities. At first, it was Pandora, Pandora's box. Then with the new deity, it was what's it called? Bathrobe. It was the Dark Knight's metal that was like just a super fusion where Wonder Woman became like this avatar to monitor the new universe that was created. I created Rebirth of DC Rebirth, and now Rebirth is happening, but then Rebirth is transitioned it into future state. It's just a lot of shit going on. And don't get me started on Marvel. Marvel has made it its mission to fail with pride for the past. Ever since the MCU started cooking, Marvel has just dropped the ball. Civil War 2 was ass. Just it's just every most of everything over the Inhumans was wasted potential. Um, you know, Rickman's run on the Avengers is sorely missed. Um, Thor, the Thor run with Gore is sorely missed. I miss Jane Foster's Thor right now because shit's getting cheeks. It was cool with Marvel Now. Marvel Now came out swinging. Miles Morales I thought was always had good potential for character. And the original Ultimate interpretation was a little bland to me. Was a little bit. I just wanted to interject a nigga here to spice things up, but didn't really know how to write a black character. And it's one of those. But yeah, for the most part, I can do understand with modern comic books, people feel there is too much of a push for like social commentary and to address certain things and try to show representation. But at the same token, it's like they have to appeal to different audiences because it's not just heterosexual males that watch battle rap or that watch comic books. Excuse me, everyone enjoys comic books, so you have to make sure it's you have to make sure that you're still giving enough to where your audience as a whole spectrum is still being stimulated. But my issue again is when motherfuckers want to still defend and say, oh, well, comic books is better than manga and stuff like that. And you're asking a nigga who personally, loves manga now. I love manga personally. I love anime. I've always been a fan of anime. I was a fan of anime since I was a kid watching Evangelion and Ninja Scroll. Like I've always been a fan of anime. From Yu Yu Hakusho, Tenchi Muyo. I'm about Toonami. I was a Toonami baby. You know what I mean? So I was always into the medium, and then I've always appreciated the storytelling. And at the time, we didn't really have more serious animation on the Western side of the world. So I feel with Western animation. Um, I think we would have been to our benefit to start investing in more um, all ages content or for a more older audience in terms of the animation. There's a market for that in the United States, clearly. Like if you think that we love manga, imagine when they start making animes. Like you think these Netflix exclusives, where they make these exclusive animes that come out in the United States the same time as Japan. Why do you think they started doing that? Because they started realizing how huge that audience here is in the United States. They're just realizing it now. And and you're going to see a lot of crossover with that. You're going to see a lot of crossover with anime. You're going to see a lot of crossover trying to add blacks and other minorities into something just to get that extra dollar because they're seeing how the world's changing. They're going to appeal to the motherfuckers that's actually paying to be there, or that actually want to see it, or the people that are actually vocalizing what they want to see on screen. They're going to appeal to that. There's a demand for representation. They don't want to tell you that a lot of these things are making a little bit more money because they got us doing it. They're not going to tell you that these things are thriving now that they're involving a lot of niggas or a lot of minorities or a lot of different ethnic groups that actually don't mind going to the movies. They just got tired of going to the movies and seeing the same people. So I would say to anyone who's a fan of comic books but disagrees with mangas are taking over the West. You got to think about it like this. Y'all see comic books taking inspiration from direct manga. Nowadays, when it used to be the other way around, you used to see a lot of anime that were paying homage to comic books super heavy, and comic books wasn't really paying them no mind. It wasn't until the newer age of artists started coming into comic books that had more anime influences, and to where the appreciation for it started to grow a little bit more. So now we appreciate more styles like that now in comic books. We appreciate. Well, I think we always had an appreciation for a cartoony but detailed art style. Well, I think manga gave us an alternative to the big two, the variants, the Image comics. And the connotation of comic books here in the United States is superheroes. And I feel with manga, it gives us something that frees us from the box that we placed the comic book media, man. In the United States, it is strictly reserved for superhero comic books. We do strictly reserve it for that. You know what I mean? And to some extent, is it? And to some extent, what do we do to change that narrative? You know what I mean? What do we do to what do we do to change the narrative of how we view comic books or manga in the United States? Me personally, I'm a fan of American comic books. I've always been a fan of American comic books. I've been an avid fan of American comic books, and I always feel American comic books needs to break the notion of we have to destroy the narrative that it's just superhero comics. And even though we know the indie scene is incredible, we know from stuff like Sweet Tooth to Saga to things of that nature. Black Sands is doing their goddamn thing. A salute to Noah Caesar and other black publishers and stuff like that as well. People are slowly the template of manga or comics in general in terms of just create our own stories and properties that follow a narrative from a singular vision, because that's the long game. The long game, keeping people invested through a storyline and through a world and characters that they can keep coming back to. But Gotham, Metropolis, Star City, or Spider-Man's New York is hard to connect to when every new storyline comes and it's a new artist, it's a new writer. Sometimes from issue to issue, the writers are different, artists are different. So it's one of those. Where for Dragon Ball Z, Berserk, My Hero Academia, Yu Yu Hakusho, Hunter x Hunter, to something like Record of Ragnarok. Even though that anime is turd. At least it's well drawn in the manga. The drawing are in the manga. But even though it's turd, because it's original. Because anime has its own tropes, of course. But I would love for one day for us to really look at why manga is succeeding here, and then you got to think it's going to succeed more than anything because it's just easier to comprehend and take a little more serious because they don't take themselves too serious. I mean, My Hero Academia is pretty good places, but it feels like a homage to superhero comic books, and it's doing good because people love comic books, man. People love comic books. It's just people want comic books that are comic books again. We want comic books that are telling good stories first. We want comic books that are not afraid to be comic books. But we don't want to deal with we don't want to have to read a comic book that's full of just someone in particular politics. And I think that's where modern comics in the States, in the United States, may be the real issue that a lot of people have, because it's not about comics being too what do you call it? It's not about us having the same not about people having like the same taste or anything like that. But it's about with manga and comics we can still adapt. What the hell I was talking about? That's why I need people more on this live. But yeah. But long story short, man, that's how I feel, man. I feel like when it comes to like artists who are jumping into this fold and have their opinions about manga and American comic books, man, don't get involved in terms of picking a side, because truth be told, there is no better or worse. The artwork from artists of both styles are incredible. Both have contributed incredible stories, tales, moments, iconic catchphrases to the medium of comic books. And I feel for American comic books to be able to succeed going into the new millennium, we got to start allowing them to create their own projects. Like, I got to find somebody who wants to tell their own story and just let them tell it. Find one you believe in, find one that's good, take that time to do that and invest in it. Y'all need to find somebody to run Spider-Man for a while. Y'all need to find somebody that really could stick with a character for a while and do something with them. Not just a limited 12 to 13 issue run. I need somebody to take a long, ongoing title and really push out some quality shit. And you can have spin-off titles in the meantime to elaborate on the story. You can do that. But we still need to keep focused on the fact of creating how do I say this? I don't know what I'm saying. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry, y'all. Nigga, Nigga rambling. But how I feel about this overall, my final thoughts on manga and comic books is just the fact of comic books are always going to be a bit more lagging in this modern era, just because the notion of costume superheroes is kind of played out. You know what I mean? So you see these reinventions of new characters, changing these suits around, and you know they have to find a way to still make the appeal of the superhero work in a modern context where the superheroes we like now don't wear costumes. They just fly, shoot energy beams, and punch real fast. And they just a strong Superman. They fly around and do that in third, but you know they just don't wear a costume. They don't got a superhero name. Hell, My Hero Academia, most of them niggas got regular names. There's very few of them got a superhero name, and most of them be dumb. So I feel like times are just changing. You know, times are just changing. You know, unfortunately, there's really nothing that we can do. Yeah, so that's all. That's all I have on. That's the only thing I have to say personally. But other than that, man, for real, man, it's been a Nerd Rap podcast for real, man. I appreciate everybody that has, shown love and supported me on various different platforms from Anchor.fm to Stitcher, Apple Podcasts. You know, we everywhere, Nerd Rap Podcast. So y'all make sure that y'all tune in. Most importantly, what are y'all thoughts on comic books versus manga and comic books sales are failing? And how do y'all feel about that? Do y'all feel that manga could still stay the reigning supreme, or do you think American comic books could still find some ways to circumvent their disadvantages in this new market? I don't know, but we'll see. It's motherfucking Nerd Rap Podcast. We out. Check out the new My Hero Academia too. Turns out this nigga Deku is going out and becoming like a cold anti-hero. And now that he has told All Might that you don't have to worry about me anymore, it's about to get dark. Nerd Rap Podcast, we out.